Albanese, who's more likely to fly his girlfriend around Australia, doing all kinds of things, like all at the taxpayers' expense.
Why do I feel like I'm about to be offended?
Oh shit, here we go again.
A few people will ask, because we're obviously Australian. Jay, would you say we're Australian?
Well, we're from Australia.
There we go. we're Australian.
But we're not the traditional Australians that the Americans make us out to be.
Yes.
Oi, gobber! Go throw your nut chimper on the Barbie.
Exactly. I actually have an Australian slang dictionary right here. And I don't know any of the words in this, so maybe I'm not Australian enough for everyone at home. But I've had a few people say, why do we cover a lot of American topics? And I have my own kind of reasons for that. I didn't really kind of bombard you with this, Jay, beforehand, but I think we've kind of partially talked about this. But in my opinion,
America runs the world.
Exactly. Yeah, if something happens in America, it trickles down. If bad presidents or bad leaders in America, everyone follows the leadership pattern, and then we all fall down. So, yes, that's kind of one of the reasons why sometimes, American news is more compelling, because it literally has a trickle down effect. And if we don't pay attention to America, we are behind the eight ball on what's going to happen in Australia. So that's kind of, yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my way of thinking. But I did want to start a little bit with the state of current Australian politics, because, Australia. And I had an interesting discussion with someone over the last week, Jay, that we would be better off right now if we still had Scott Morrison as prime minister, rather than Anthony Albanese. And I was kind of like thinking, like, he's kind of got a tiny bit of a point, but everything except for the COVID type situation. What would you say? Because both weren't popular.
No. So, yeah, I guess we would be better off, in a way. We probably would have had a bit more of a stronger leader in place. Probably wouldn't have let through a lot of this ease on the wokeness side of things start to trickle through all the events and companies and stuff like that. The whole Australia Day, like boycotting, Australia Day stuff, all that kind of stuff that went on. But I mean, people were just so upset with the way that they got forced to be vaccinated against their will, and forced to stay home. So,
yeah, I think that really affected him. The pandemic type situation affected ScoMo. I'll give people at home some context, because people forget. You had ScoMo, who was more likely to trample a kid at a soccer like event, compared to Albanese, who's more likely to fly his girlfriend around Australia, doing all kinds of things, like all at the taxpayers' expense. And I think people are looking at that thinking, okay, we had this guy who was kind of a bit of a bonehead, say stupid things, and then you've got this guy that actually is flying around his girlfriend, wooing her, taking her to all events. So I think that's kind of one thing. He's not relatable in any way.
Look, we can't also just point the finger at that. I mean, anyone that's in charge, they're all using whatever tools that they've got at their discretion, to, fly people here, fly themselves there, buy this, buy that, get this information, make that move. They're all in it for themselves to make money and to use every bit of the benefits that they can. So, I mean, to point the finger directly on what he's doing, maybe he's taking it right to the max, maybe. I'm not sure. But they all do it in some way.
Yeah, so it's a bit crazy. But yeah, so people are kind of like thinking that, people didn't like ScoMo. They wanted Albo to come in. And now I think some people are having a real kind of problem with the way he's running things. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about Australian politics, I guess. It's not as followable as American politics, in my opinion.
Definitely not as pumped up. Like,
yeah, it's not as enticing.
Yeah, like the elections that go on. It's pretty boring. You
Yeah.
either have Labor or Liberal, and they both pretty much just promise shit that don't do shit. So, um, we need to kind of get away from that. And actually vote someone in that's actually prepared to make a change and follow through with that change, and hold them accountable. Basically, there needs to be definitely some rules or something in place that you can start holding these parties accountable for what they promise and what they actually go through with.
Well, that's what we're kind of saying. I'm not really seeing much action happening. This.
And to be honest, it would also make better sense, like if we could actually leave a party in there for the whole 8 years. You know what I mean? Like if someone comes in, starts doing stuff for a couple of years, then kind of catch wind that they're not doing too good, then they might start scaling back or not get to finish the projects that they had in place. Then someone else gets voted in, and then that party then takes down whatever that they were building, and we kind of just go on this kind of like circle, like a hamster wheel, where we're just spinning at the same spot and we're not actually moving forward as a society.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, in the last 15 years, you've had multiple parties kind of oust somebody halfway through their reign, so to speak, and then move to someone else. So that's kind of what we're seeing there. But yeah, so that's a bit of a Australian politics update. Thank you for watching Glass Culture Podcast. If you liked this video, click here to subscribe. If you want to see the full podcast, click here.